All right, so we have just completed session one in the last week, and we are getting into the second session. So now it's a time to understand the major topic, what we are intend to learn, that is SQL, right? So let's begin with the basic question: what is SQL? And try to get into more and more deeper so that if somebody asks like what is SQL, not just saying SQL stands for structured query language, but let us try to give more information so that anybody can say that you have the complete information about that. All right, so what is SQL stands for structured query language. Yeah, so I know there is a language called C language, I know C++, and I know Java. Okay, I know Python. These are all programming languages. But how different is SQL? Yes, SQL is different because it is a query language. Query language, the word itself is indicating that is uh, query stands for question in general, right? So you're asking a question. Can you tell me how many employees in the company? So it's my question. So you're giving an answer. So 1,000 is my total number of employees. So now that it's a time for the database to give the answer that answer for your question. So that questions you are going to put in the form of queries, and this completely English-based language. That's what we've been talking about. So SQL stands for structured query language. So SQL was basically initially developed it initially developed at IBM. Okay, as we discussed in the demo, just I'm giving a reiterating it. So it is was first and developed, designed and developed in IBM in the year 1970s. So we can't say SQL is a very new language. It's very old actually, but eventually it has taken a lot of forms. In terms of if you look at that types of database management system, we have seen hierarchical method, network method, okay, file system object, okay. We have seen different methodologies, but now we settle down with RDBMS, and this SQL especially, it came in 1970. So that means it's a very old one, right? It's a very old one, and which we are still using because it's a very powerful language which will help you to query any kind of database. That is, especially we are talking about a relational database management system. So SQL is used to communicate, okay, with a database. What database is, we have seen database is nothing but the collection of not data, but it's a collection of tables. And we know what is a table. Table is basically look at your Excel. Okay, once you open your Excel, you'll see a beautiful information. Okay, you have a lot of columns. Okay, and each column specifies and make me understand, okay, what this entire columns talks about. If I have something called employee name at that first row, that means the entire stuff is filled with, or the information is stuffed with, it's employee name information. At the same time, we have a company name, we have date of joining, date of birth, sex, we have what is the salary. So these are the different columns, and we have a rows. So table is always a two-dimensional one because we have a rows and a columns. So this is basically most of the time the word which we use is a tabular form. Okay, so please do remember whenever we are talking about a relational database management system, we talk about two things. One is structured data, structured in the sense one which easily can readable. Okay, structured data. WhatsApp information is not structured information. If I want to really understand what is WhatsApp information in my contacts, I need to download it. I need to put it in a proper format so that I can easily read it from which number or which message I got. I need to put it in a tabular format, then only I can see. So it is unprocessed data, okay, which we cannot directly understand. We need to process it, then only it can become an information. So that is unstructured data. Here we are talking about company's information, where in my company a lot of transactions is been happening, or a lot of sales is been happening. This information being stored in some legacy systems maybe, or maybe I'm getting in the form of Excel file, maybe I'm getting in the form of notepad or dat file, whatever the format I'm getting. What I'm doing is simply uploading to MySQL and started querying it, okay, by beautifully creating some tables. So we need to remember always like SQL is only used to communicate with a database. And there is one important word which we need to understand here. That is SQL is ANSI. Okay, so according to ANSI, that is ANSI. Let me make a note here. ANSI. This is a very important keyword which we need to remember because it's most frequently asked question in the interviews. So that means ANSI stands for American National Standard Institute. So what is this actually, and why it is came into the picture here? So American National Standard Institute, it is a it is a institute which has defined the standards of SQL. That means they told this American Institute, National Institute, has already laid down some standard rules how SQL can be used, and that SQL can be start using on any relational database management system. So that means whatever the standard they have defined, the SQL should be like this. The syntax should be like this. When you want to create something, a table, this is how to be created. So they have already defined some rules, okay, golden rules that has to be followed by every relational database management system. Example, Microsoft SQL Server is RDBMS, Microsoft Access is RDBMS, Portugal SQL is a RDBMS, Oracle in that for that matter is an RDBMS. Okay, you pick up any database management system is a RDBMS today, right? So we have seen MySQL is Oracle from Oracle, that is also RDBMS. So all this must and should follow SQL standards. That is nothing but American National Standard Institute. So as I said, is an institute which has set certain golden rules to be followed, and it has said to us like we need to follow certain syntax if you want to do certain operations on your databases. So please do remember what is ANSI, American National Standard Institute. It is a standard language which is used across all the relational database management system. So you can say that SQL is the main language that allows the user to talk to database server to store and edit or retrieve or whatever the operations you want to do on the database. So that's how it goes. Now let's go, which we already discussed in demo, but let me throw a light again once again. Okay, there's always confusion, not confusion actually. There are two words actually. One is SQL and one is SQL, right? One is SQL and SQL. Even for me, pronunciation of SQL is quite easy than making SQL. Though it is a three-letter word, it be little complicated while pronouncing it. For me, SQL is very quite easy. It's just saying SQL. Okay, it looks very cool, but SQL is little complicated in pronouncing SQL. We need to pronounce that way, right? But SQL is goes very smooth and it comes so easy. But however, we cannot use SQL. Okay, we cannot use SQL. The reason being, as I mentioned, SQL initially it was named after the SQL because it's uh, more or less like English kind of a language, right? So they said it is structured. Okay, they said it's a English. They said it's a query language. So that means it's a structured query language. Structured query language. But additionally, we have something called English, structured English query language. Why they're named after English? Because they found while developing or designing or while implementing, they found it's more or less we are using all the English words. So let us name it after English. But later they understood it's a trademark used by some aircraft company. They immediately changed this SQL to SQL. So we have to use, mustn't use SQL only, not SQL actually. Most of the guys, including me, I keep saying SQL because easy to pronounce, but we are not supposed to use that because now we know the reason. SQL is already taken by someone else. So we cannot have duplicate names, okay, for a company or any programming language or for anything. Okay, only humans have a duplicate names, but when it comes to a company name or a software name cannot be duplicated. So already taken. So what they did is after thinking much how I can make this still having the same kind of uh, knowledge, and even when you're calling SQL it should be in the same pronunciation. They found, let me remove the ovals. Okay, ovals, A-E-I-O-U, ovals. So I removed the E. Okay, A-E-I-O-U. So you also shall let me remove. Okay, that is also oval. E also let me remove oval. So that's how they end up left with SQL, which is nothing but again structured query language. All right. So SQL now it is called as SQL. People's often interchangeably using. They either they are saying SQL, sometimes we are saying SQL. But however, now we are learning. Let me professionally use this word as SQL, not SQL. All right, so that's a simple thought about the SQL. Now let's try to understand more in depth of it. Now, because I'm learning this, I want to implement this. in my organization, then I need to know the real purpose of SQL, actually, where I can use it. We already seen the implications of applications rather, of DBMS. We can implement in railway reservation counter or airline, finance, library management system. We can use it anywhere, right? So now let's try to understand more about the SQL now. The very first point comes to my mind. SQL is used especially to execute whatever the queries you have in your mind, or your business have, or your boss has any questions in his mind, when he wants to some insights. Because I cannot read millions of data. It's quite impossible. If it is like 1,000 lines, still I can do a filter in my Excel. Go to my Excel, just filter out like how many female employees in my company, how many male employees company, how many are working in a finance, how many are working in marketing. I can simply do it, right? Either I can quickly create a pivot table, summarized one, or else if I'm not good at that, still I can go for a filter and find out the number of employees. But it's not often so easy in the organizations, because we are dealing with millions of trillions of data, because every day data is flowing. It's not so easy to manage with simple Excel or MS Access. I'm not saying they are not good softwares, they are good, but we are talking about huge data here. So when you talk about a big data, we need to talk about big things, that is SQL Server or MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQLite, Oracle for that matter. All right. So the first one is help you. SQL helps you to execute the queries against the database. Query, always remember, it's I have a query, right? So in general, we use the word I have a query. Query, nothing but it's a question. You have a question, you're asking somebody, and you're getting the answer. That's how it works. And if I say SQL just helps you to write the queries and execute against the database, that's not the end. What all we can do actually? Okay, first I can create a database. Okay, by using SQL, first thing and foremost thing, I can create a database. Okay, yes, because when you start exploring this SQL, when you intend to learn SQL, the first and foremost thing you need to learn how to create a database. Okay, that is a place where you are going to put all the small, all the small so-called blocks called tables. So just imagine one huge area which is called as a database, under which you are creating your own blocks, nothing but tables. So the tables are going to reside in the area called a database. So we need to first create a database. Database is useless until you don't have a tables in that. So we need to have a tables in the database. So here we are going to see how to create a database by using SQL. Trust me, guys, if you are working in a live environment, in your lifetime, you'll never get a chance to create a database. Why? Because whether you're working for a bank, whether you're working for any other sectors, you'll never get a chance to create a database. Why? The reason is your database administrator, okay, your IT person might have already created a database for the company, and for each portfolio also you might have created a database, or each process also you might have already created. He already created a database. He will allow you to create the tables but not the database. The reason is for the security purpose. Okay, we have a compliance issue. So if every employee start creating a database, you'll have multiple database and there's a lot of confusion. So please do remember, you'll never get a chance to create a database in live environment. However, when we start installing this SQL Server, we can test it, how to create a database, how many multiple database we can create. So you'll get that hands-on experience with me, how to create a database on your personal laptop, but never try to implement the same in your live environment, because you will not, even if you try to create a database, it will not allow you, because your DBA, that is database administrator, might have put some restrictions. Nobody should create a database on my system. Okay, that's a security, right? So, however, we are going to see practically on our personal PCs how to install and how to create a database for yourself. So that's the second question which is coming to my mind. What is the we can execute the queries, right? We can execute the queries, and we can create the database. After creating a database, obviously sometimes I don't like the name of the database, so I may rename it. I may drop it, nothing but I'm dropping my plan. What does it mean? So that means I have a plan to go somewhere else, I'm dropping my plan. That means I'm not interested to go anywhere. So dropping is completely erasing that particular plan from your brain, right? So in the same way, from your SQL point of view, when you say a drop, okay, drop is a command here. We'll see in action anyway. Drop is a command. Whenever I use drop, that means I want to delete or remove something permanently from my database system. So that is what drop. So in live environment, or even if you think logically, I may create a database, I may rename it, I may delete it. These are the only three operations which you are going to do as per the database is concerned. So we are going to learn everything practically: how to create, how to rename it, how to drop it. Drop is nothing but just removing from your database system. You'll see in action. So that's the three things which we can do with a database. That is, you want to create it, or you want to rename it, or you want to drop or simply delete it. For now, let's start using interchangeably drop and delete, but there's a huge difference. We'll talk about practically when you start executing the queries. So that's the thing what I can do. Next thing is, after creating a database, what should be my next intention? Creating a table, right? So I want to create a table. So how it is possible? Again, with the SQL queries which you are going to learn, the commands. So in a creation of table also, the first one is I want to create. Okay, maybe I'm not liking the table name, so I want to rename it. Maybe I want to drop it. Sometimes it happens like my management decided, or my project manager decided, let's have only 5 columns for this table. But eventually, after working, they realized, let us have add one more column. So that means there are possibility where you will add a column, right? You'll add a column. So the first thing is, you'll create, you'll rename it. It's not everything you are going to do in order. What I'm saying is, there are options available. When you create a table, if you like it, you'll never go for the other options, right? But if you think like it has to be renamed, so you should know how to rename it. But when you think this table is unnecessarily sitting in my database, let me delete it. Okay, I'm dropping it. But somebody thought like your table is fantastic. The only thing is, if you can add one more column, which will be better. So I'm adding a column here. So you can add a column, you can drop a column, or you can drop the entire table itself. So whenever you're dropping a table, that means you're not dropping the database. Please do remember. But let's assume this scenario, practical scenario. We have 5 tables sitting in one database. Okay, the database name is XYZ, and it has 5 tables. Please do remember, when you're dropping the database, that means you're dropping the 5 tables also. That is a key point to be noted here. So when you're dropping the database, that means you're dropping the tables also. But when I'm dropping the table, that doesn't mean that you are dropping the database itself. No. So that is an individual entity, and these are the individual elements which are sitting under the database. All right, that's a simple thing, but we'll try to see in action, but just try to have uh, oral information what exactly it means. So after creating my table, the next job is, anybody can just easily guess. Okay, I created my database, my setup is ready. I created the so-called tables which are really required for my organization, or for my department, or for my process, whichever the process you're working for. You designed how many tables I require. You asked the project manager. You spoke to project SMEs, okay, subject matter expertise, who are the real people who knows the data. You spoke to them. You got to know these are the columns to be designed. So once the table is created, what next? I need to insert the data, right? This is the immediate thing which we are going to do. That means after creating the table, we will start injecting the data into the tables, not into the database, guys, into the tables, because the tables anyway sitting in the database. So never use the word I'm inserting data into the database. No, we are not actually inserting data into the database. Rather, we are putting the data into the tables, and these tables are sitting intern in the database. So when you insert the data, the lot of things happens actually. Maybe my data is incorrect, so I want to update it again, because I entered somebody's date of birth wrong, somebody's date of joining wrong, somebody's employee's name, first name, last name confusion. So I want to update it. Okay, so nothing but you are updating it, and somebody has left the organization, so I doesn't want his records anymore. So I want to delete the records. Okay, so primarily this is what you're going to do. You'll insert the data, you'll update it, you will delete it. Okay, sometimes you doesn't want the entire data, you want the entire data to be deleted from your system. So that can also can happen. Be mute. All right. All right, so this is a third layer, we can say. The first, after creating the database, we have created the table. After that, we started inserting the data. So the next one is, as you understood, like we can also start updating and deleting with the SQL. So that's not the end, actually. We can also, SQL helps you to set the permissions, okay? Again, it's not my job because I'm a SQL developer. I can't play a role of DBA here, database administrator role. I cannot play. Myself, I'm creating a tables. Myself, I'm putting a restrictions or permissions or granting access or revoking access. I can't do all these things, right? It's a toxic combination. However, on your personal system, you can always check. Okay, at least you need to have a two users here to understand better. I created user one, user two. I'm putting some restriction for the user one. Don't use this table or don't use this particular data. I can put a restriction. So whenever you're logging with the user one credentials, you'll clearly notice that, okay, this table I'm not able to access. That means administrator, DB has put some restrictions on it. Practically, you can see on your laptop also, on your personal PC. So set permissions is not my job again. It is a DBA job. What he can do is once you create a table, he will try to provide the access to you. Okay, you already have an access. That's why you are able to create the tables. But however, I don't want all the people who, all the employees who are working in the organization who has an access to SQL, but they doesn't want, a DBA doesn't want, or your boss or your business doesn't want this so and so tables or really confidential customer information is there and you don't want to access, so you can set permissions. That means don't use this one, don't do that, putting certain kind of rules there. Okay, and sometime I newly joined in the company and I need this table, so what happens is I need to raise a request to get the access for this particular table. So before that I need to get the access for the SQL system itself, right? That is SQL. My company is using Microsoft SQL. Your company is using Oracle. Some company is using MySQL. So you need to get appropriate access for that software. Then you will be allowed to get into this database and you are allowed to get into the table only if you have the access. So that means as simple as that, you are providing a some set of permissions, right? So SQL also helps you to provide the uh, permissions on your tables. So we have seen how set permissions. So here, let me write here, grant, revoke are the two operations basically any DBA can expect. We'll try to see more in action how permissions can be set. But again, as I said, like we need to have a two users to see practically whether it is implemented or not. Because when I'm installing my SQL or SQL Server on my system, I'm a single user, right? So I cannot see practically how it works, granting or revoke, but we can see the syntax. So that's the end of the purpose. You can see very clearly it can do a larger extent of your job in your live environment. So that means I'm doing end-to-end job here, right from creating a database and ending with putting some restrictions. So we'll see how to install the SQL Server also, not today, maybe coming week, we'll see how to install SQL Server. Let us dedicate some time for the next week, and also MySQL, how to install, if at all, if you guys think, yes, I require. So let me, all right, having understood like what is SQL, what is the purpose of SQL, where we can implement it, now we have started understanding basically the importance of it. Okay, we are just trying to understand from the scratch how it really works in the real world, because we haven't seen the software yet. Not to worry, we are going to see installation as well. We are going to see the interface. We'll spend a lot of time in understanding what are the different components we have for SQL. We are not really learning SQL Server here, but we are trying to understand the components here. But eventually, when you start using SQL, you're also learning automatically without your knowledge. So that's how it works. Let's try to see the classification. Okay, the classification of your SQL, or you can say subset of your SQL language. Okay, your classification. Let me mute. Okay, so the classification, if you look at the classification, let me just put it in a simple format so that you can understand. SQL commands are classified into different uh, types. Usually, some people are dividing into 5 types, as some people are dividing into 4 types. But however, let me take the extensive one. That is the 5 types. The first one talks about DDL. Okay, I'll talk more about this, but let me put in a simple format: DDL. Then we have a DML. Then we have something called DCL. Then we have TCL. Then we have DQL. Don't worry if you're not getting what these buzzwords are. Okay, the first one is DDL. DDL. That's it. Yeah, DDL. Then we have something called DML. Then we have a DCL. Let me put some color so that you can make the difference. Okay, we have a five types here. We can call these 5 types as a 5 subset languages of SQL. Okay, because if you see the end letter is L, DDL, DML. For everything, there is last letter called L. L stands for your language. Okay, so that means these are the 5 types of languages which are a subset of your SQL. SQL itself is the language, query language. For that, we have a classification. I'm the I'm the best developer in SQL, but what if you don't know the classification? I mean, which are the commands comes under DDL, which are the commands comes under DML? If you fail to understand, you are not really good for any certifications, or you are not good for any interview rounds, because this is the most important thing which we need to refer as a Bible going forward. Like whenever you're typing something, whenever you query something in your database, we need to just visualize. Okay, we need to recap. Okay, I'm using some create command. Create command comes under which category? Okay, so that's how we need to let's start exploring how this works. So the very first one in the DDL, we have, let me just keep writing. We have something called create. So that means the create command comes under a DDL. Now, what is DDL? I don't know, but I'm just putting this information under this. Then we have drop. Then we have something called alter. Then we have truncate. Okay, these are the different commands which are going to come and sit under DDL. We'll talk about more, but let me put these things. Then we have an insert command under the DML. Then we have something called update. Then we have something called delete, and DCL is, yeah, it comes under the category called grant and revoke. Let me check back this. DCL stands for commit. Then we have roll back, and we have a save point. Then we have a DQL select. All right, we got the very good classification here. Let me just make it bigger. All right. All right, so the very first one standing at the top is called SQL, that is a structured query language. Again, it has a subset languages. So let's consider the very first one, that is DDL. DDL stands for Data Definition Language. Okay, it is a subset language of SQL, which is more or less talks about the structure. Okay, your structure of your database, or your structure of your table. For example, creating a table, right? Deleting a table, altering the table, or truncating the table. So all these commands, what you see on the screen right now, from create to truncate, all these commands fall under DDL. All these commands fall under DDL, or you need to remember one point here, or auto committed. Okay, let's try to understand more about this word committed. I committed changes. Okay, committed changes in the sense you save the changes. So that means whenever you're creating, let's try to understand the background thing here. I'm creating a table. Okay, fine, you created a table, but what happens exactly when you create a table? It is auto saved. That means it is already permanently created in your database. Of course, if you're dropping it, that's a later case, but auto saved, that's what I'm referring here. Whatever the detail commands you are using here, it's auto saved automatically. Create, it's auto saved. Drop, auto save, that means permanently you're dropping it. Alter, nothing but you're doing the changes. Okay, doing the changes. And the last one is truncate. Truncate is little confusing word, I can say. uh, Truncate is like kind of a word which you generally use, like for deleting or removing something, an object from your system, right? So delete also does the same thing. So I want to understand the basic difference here. First, let's talk about the create. Okay, with create, what all you can do it. The very first one, create command. Do remember, whenever you start SQL commands on your Microsoft SQL Server or any relational database, you always end up starting with these commands only, nothing. We always use this command. Either you'll use a create command, either you'll use a insert command, either use a update command, or you'll use a select command. Your queries always starts with a statement or a command, the command what you're seeing on the screen. So if you can remember this create, nothing like it. If you don't remember, still fine, but you need to remember this classification. Okay, which one comes under? Most of the people claim that this selector doesn't come under DQL, it comes under the DDL only. Okay, but you can easily visualize, actually DDL is basically changing the structure. By using a select, I'm just selecting the records, I'm not changing the structure. So I don't think so it fits at DDL. It should be at the DQL only. Okay, we'll talk about DQL later. So create will help you to create a table, it will help you to create a database, it will help you to create a procedures, it will help you to create a views, it will help you to create a index. So that means whatever I want to create something new all the time, this create command will help me. So that means you are changing the structure in the database. So it's DDL basically talks about changing the structure in your database. Data definition language, the word itself is indicating data definition. So this language is basically typically used to change the structure. Second one is drop. Drop is nothing but permanently removing any object from your database. It could be a table, it could be a procedure, it could be your view, it could be index, whatnot, like anything. If you want to drop something in simple words, you are using a drop. It's a general English word. I have a plan to go somewhere else, I'm dropping my plan. So that means I have no I have no plans now to go there because I dropped the plan. So dropping is permanently removing that particular plan from your brain, in the same way from your database system. So that is a drop. The next one is alter. The word itself is indicating alter. You want to alter something, right? You want to alter. Alter in the sense you created a table. Later you found the table is not, it is incomplete because we need to add a few more columns. So in that case, we can use alter. By using alter command, you can drop or you can add columns for your table. So again, I repeat the same command here. We are talking about structural changes here. Okay, you're talking about structural shape of your table you are changing. So that's what we are trying to do in the DDL. The last one, very interesting one, truncate. So what is truncate is, let me go a practical example here. So I have this kind of data here. Let's take it. This is a simple table. Okay, this is a table. Assume that this is a column which I have at the top, and this is my table. This is my table, which is a two-dimensional table, and which is called as a tabular format, which has a proper header, which has a proper records here. All right. So when I want to drop a table, what I mean is, this is what I'm doing. This is drop table. That means I'm completely reboot the table from my database system. Now, what is a truncate mean? Okay, what is truncate mean? You are removing only the rows, but you are safeguarding the structure of your table. That means you have still the header existing, you have still the table existing in your database, but the data is gone. That is your truncate command does. Truncate only knows one thing, whether it is a one row, 1 million row, or 10 million rows, doesn't know. It simply removes all the data from your table. That is what the truncate. So we need to be very careful when you're using this truncate command. Truncate doesn't know anything, simply erasing complete data from your table, but retaining the column headers and the structure of your table. Assuming that you have created a very very important table, but you loaded a wrong information intent, or you're supposed to load the current month data, but you still end up with last month data. So you want to truncate it. The word truncate, you need to understand here, you are deleting the data from your table. So this is my table, this is what I used a command called truncate. Truncate in the sense you just remove the data from your table. So that is about the truncate. Where is my, oh yeah. So that is about the truncate. Now, when you're talking about this, probably you might be thinking about what is delete then. Okay, we'll talk about that later, but hopefully you understood all these four commands, which are most commonly used whenever you're defining the structure, whenever you want to do some modification to the structure, we always need to think about DDL, data definition language. So when I'm trying to use all these queries on my editors, any editor, when I'm writing query, there is no need to recap actually. Okay, this comes under DML, this comes under DDL. No, this is generally to understand the classification. Otherwise, you will randomly use. If I'm using this command, doesn't mean that I cannot use this combination. Yes, you can use. You can use this combination. You can use this combination. That combination can be anything. But if I want to put all these commands into one place, this 1 to 4 we have, then we have 3, then we have 2, then we have 3. All these commands, if you list out, yes, we can use randomly them, but this is only a classification, I can say. This is a classification basically how each command comes under which category. The next one is again very important one, DML. DML stands for data manipulation language. The word itself is again indicating you are trying to manipulate something. Okay, what you are trying to manipulate? By using a create command, I created a table, right? So DML is more of talking about manipulation. Okay, manipulation, that means you are inserting data. Okay, when I want to insert a data, that means I need to think about this comes under DML. You are manipulating it. The next one is it will always happens, right? Even if you take your Aadhaar card tomorrow, you thought like your name is incorrect, so you'll go to center, you'll try to update your first name, last name, or something. Your date of birth is incorrect, or your phone number is incorrect. You want to update something. It always usually happens in the real life, also in the organization. So you keep updating the data. Some data is incorrect, we'll update it. Okay. Instead of creating a new table, what you'll do, you'll try to edit the existing one. For instance, I have this my Excel data here. Somebody said this particular cell is not correct. So what I'll do, being an Excel, okay, simply I'll go. It is not 100, it is 50. I'll simply edit it. Okay, I'm using a word edit it, but actually I'm updating it. Okay, this is what I've simply updated it. So updating in the sense, update command always refers to you can do only update when something is existing there. Okay, you need to have such record. I want to edit my date of birth. So if you want to edit my date of birth, my record should present in the database. That is when you are going to use the update command. So hope you understood what is update command means. And here comes delete one. Little confusion. What is delete command and truncate command? Okay, this is my header again. Let me put this as a header. And as you remember, truncate will just remove all the information, right? Truncate will remove all the information. So what the delete is going to do then? Okay, as I said, truncate will erase everything without understanding what I'm supposed to do. It will simply blindly remove the data. But what if you want to remove all the records except this record, that is, which is having a record of something 50. Let's understand this way. I want to delete everything, but I want to retain this one. By using a truncate, I cannot do that because truncate cannot differentiate what you want to retain and what you want to delete. It will blindly delete all the information from your table. So here comes the picture of using delete command. Delete command always helps you what to delete and what not to delete. That means I have some 15 records here. After 15 records, I don't want to delete one particular record or some set of rows which I don't want to delete. So in that case, you can use the delete. Delete always works with a where condition. That means you want to delete something where your marks is 50. Where not equal to 50 or equals to 50 or greater than 50. These are all some operators which we'll try to understand now. So delete command can have a condition clause called where. Delete this where employee name is this. That means you can put certain conditions in the delete, but in the truncate, you don't have that facility. That means you don't have facility of putting some restrictions while deleting some data. That is the primary difference between this truncate and delete, but both are work same. If I don't use any where condition, delete and truncate are same for me. Both delete the data from my table. But delete has an option of using where condition, but whereas truncate doesn't have. That's the primary difference. When your intention is to delete everything, either you can use truncate or delete. But when your intention is to delete some data with certain clauses, only people who joined last year delete the data. Only retain the data which is a current month. Only retain the data which is a current day or current hour, current minute. So you can put certain conditions only in the delete command, but not in the truncate command. So that is the primary difference. Hope you understand how to use effectively truncate and delete. Don't worry, we haven't seen anything in action. We are going to see every command practically by implementing, by doing errors. More importantly, I like to do errors. Let's do a lot of errors and understand how it can work in real environments. So the next one is, as I said, DCL is not my job at all. Grant is like basically it is used to give a user access or privileges to a database. Not only a database, for that matter, uh, uh, I have 10 tables. I have an access. It doesn't mean that I have an access to all the tables because my DBA put certain restrictions. This guy is from HR. He should not have any access to sales department. So putting certain restrictions again depends upon the organization structure here. I'm not commenting. HR will never have an access to finance, may have, may not have. It's completely organization structure, how they define and who is important and who is not. So granting access is basically providing the privileges, access privileges, so that you can do only read only. Sometimes I can only retrieve the data. I can't do much. Maybe I have a read and write access also where I can update some information. So it's very dangerous. We should be very careful when you are requesting access for your business partners or for your end users, because you are the project, you are the developer, you designed it, and you need to be very, very clear and you need to have a proper email communication. Who should have an access of read only? Who should have a read and write access? Who should not have an access? So it's all completely your discussion, your brainstorming with your project managers. All right, so that's about the grant of providing an access. Next one is revoke. It's a completely reverse word, right? Grant, revoke. So that means I'm working in an XYZ organization. I was granted some access to use certain tables and I left the organization, so they revoked my access. That means I'm not a user anymore. So ideally, I should not have an access. So the license is being removed, okay, or the access is removed. Whatever the access I used to have on my system or my application, everything is removed. So that is revoke is primarily talks about taking back your permissions. As simple as that, taking back about your permissions. So that is about your revoke, that is DCL. So DCL, DDL, data definition language, DML, data manipulation language, DCL, data control language. Okay, you're more of controlling here, right? More of controlling here. So that is either to provide the access or shall I revoke your access. That is more of controlling language. So this is not my favorite one because I'm not a DBA, because I'm a SQL developer. Even if I know how to grant an access revoke, I can never play that role because I don't have that admin access. If you want to perform these two commands, if you want to really do this kind of providing access to somebody, you need to have a DBA admin access. Only then only you can do that, because grant is also a command. Simply if you write a command, once you say enter, this command is executed. But in real time, it will not be executed. The reason is you don't have an access. That's it. As simple as that, you need to understand. DCL is not my job because it's a toxic combination. Though I know that best of the both worlds, that is SQL developer, I know how the DBA works also, but never I'm going to use both the things at one place. So I cannot play a dual role because it's a toxic combination. The next very important one, I can say TCL, which is a transaction control language. So that means what basically this TCL does is these commands can only use with a DML. Okay, we know a DML. A DML stands for data manipulation language, which primarily used for inserting data, updating data, deleting data. So how this TCL is totally dependent on DML. Let's try to take a look. Now a DML is dealing with the insert, update, delete. So if you look at the TCL, the first option is talking, the first command rather, talking about commit. Okay, these operations are automatically committed in the database, right? That's why they cannot be used while creating the tables or dropping them. So what the commit is going to do is, the commit command is used to save all the transactions to the database. So insert, when I say insert, it is inserting the data, but the query is not really auto saved. So I can start using commit command to which can you can use it to save all the transactions to your database. So when you look at the second one, that is a rollback. Rollback command is used to undo all the transactions. Okay, this is primarily which we try to do experiment with Excel, right? You write something like this and later thought it is not required, so I'm using Control Z. What does it mean, Control Z? That means you want to go to that point where you are actually started. You doesn't require whatever the additions you have done. I don't like a local. I just want to use Control Z so that I can erase it, or you can erase it manually also. Rollback is always talks about, it's a kind of a undo transaction. Undo, this keyword, right? Undo is nothing but you want to remove that, okay, that have not already been saved to the database. So rollback is basically undo operations, nothing much about it. So save point. Save point, this is something like, again, interesting point. If I'm trying to save some 1,000 transactions in my database, so save point is used to roll the transaction back to a certain point without rolling back to the entire transaction. So that means without actually rolling back the entire transaction, you are just going back to the original position called the point where you started in terms of a transaction. That is a save point. That is your save point. You saved at one particular time, and later on you're saving again the transaction at a particular time. Again, if you just start comparing, these are my two favorites. Okay, this these two comments comes under. Okay, these two commands basically comes under DBA part, because I'm not the one who's going to commit it. I'm not the one who's going to roll back. I'm not the one who is going to save point. I'm not the one who is going to grant access for you. I'm not the one who is going to revoke the access for you. So these are not, I don't want to say these are not related. We are not going to learn it, but we have a clear idea what we can do it. We can also see how to write the query, but I cannot execute it. We'll see practically in action. The last one is DQL. As I said, most of the people still have a debate. This select command should be under the DDL or in the DQL. But I suggest it should go to the DQL, because DDL more or talks about structural changes, right? By using the select command, we are not doing any structural changes. We are just selecting some data from my database. I'm trying to select all those people who are working under finance. So I'm just retrieving the data. I'm not changing any structure or modifying it. So that means this select command should sit under data query language. So sorry, DQL stands for data query language. So this language is basically used, okay, under which we have one and only query command, that is select. So whenever using a DQL, that means you are performing a query to fetch the data from your database. So again, depends upon what kind of data you're trying to fetch. Is it the complete data, or is it the partial data, or in a particular month data, or year data, or whatever it may be. Okay, or you're trying to join something and to get a proper month's data. It's all again depends upon the requirement. So primarily, the select command comes under DQL. So let me take a quick recap here once again. DDL stands for data definition language. DML stands for data manipulation language. DCL stands for data controlling language. TCL stands for transaction control language. Whatever the transactions been happening in the database. Whenever they say transaction, don't think about a banking transactions or something. Whenever a line is going and sitting in the database, that is a transaction. Okay, one transaction, one record is getting updated to your database. That is mean it's a transaction, not a banking transaction. It could be a sales transaction. So that's how the a word which you've been using it, transaction. So the next one is DQL, the final one, which stands for data control language. So sorry, data query language. So that means you are trying to query the database, and one and only a command which help you to fetch the data from your database is only a select command. Okay, so the bottom line, whenever you start your SQL queries, when you start querying your databases, whether it's a simple one or a complicated one, sub queries, joining, whatever the stuff you want to do tomorrow, please do remember all these commands only. These are the commands which are going to use. Okay, these are the commands, and these are the classifications. As I said, this is the same as a projection operation relational algebra, especially when you talk about a DQL. Okay, it is used primarily to select the attributes based on your conditions. And select is not just a select command because it's always associated with where. What does it mean? Let me go to my Excel sheet again. This is my entire data set for my organization. I want to select only the data which is 50 related. So what I'm doing, simply filtering it. So what you're trying to do here is, out of a million rows, you are trying to filter certain portion of data with some condition, right? What is my condition here? 50 is a condition. So in the SQL, what happens is, when you are selecting some data from the database, you always not select the entire data because that's not your requirement. Maybe out of million records, you want to select only current month data, or current week data, or current day data. So that means what I'm referring here, it's a condition. It's a condition. Based on certain conditions, you try to retrieve data. So select command can also be used to get complete data or a portion of a data. We'll see in action again. That's about the select command. All right, now it's the time to get into something, a new topic, because we now very much clear with the classification, basically called as a subset of SQL, which we have seen in the Excel format. Subset of SQL. SQL itself is a language, query language, and it has another 5 classifications, where basically which command does what. They've classified very clearly. For example, DQL is only used, this language is basically used to fetch the records from your database. TCL has its own purpose, DCL has its own purpose, DML has its purpose, DDL has purpose. DDL, data definition language; DML, data manipulation language; DCL, data control language; TCL, transaction control language; DQL, data query language. So that's the end of this query languages, subsets of language of SQL. Now let's get on to the, once again, a very important topic which we often use uh, with a combination of your commands. Okay, we have seen some commands, right? So when you want to use these commands on your database, against your database, we have to know the operators. Let's try to understand these operators. SQL operators. Okay, let me put this in the SQL Excel itself. Okay, SQL operators. SQL operators, again, further divided into,
When are
let's,
you sharing your screen?
all right. So we are starting with the operators now, having completed with the classification subset languages with the SQL. So SQL operators plays a vital role whenever you're trying to implement or query against your databases. I want to select some records from the database, but you also want to perform some operations on it. Like you want to operate something like maybe you want to unit sold, how many units are there, how many what is its selling price. You want to do some operations on it, right? So whenever you want to perform some arithmetic operators, or when you want to do certain comparison operators, if this is equals to this or not, okay, you want to do certain kind of analysis, or you want to do some kind of a reconciliations, we always end up using these operators. So we need to know these operators at any cost whenever you're running any queries. So primarily, these SQL operators are further divided into 3 more. That is AO, which I simply remember. AO stands for arithmetic operators. Then we have a CO, which stands for comparison operators. LO, which stands for a logical operator. So how you can just remember ACL, which stands for arithmetic operator, comparison operator, and then we have logical operators. Now let's try to get into deep dive into this, how this arithmetic operators are going to help me, how this comparison operators help me, how this logical operators help me. So let me draw a big one. Okay, so the very first one, let's take a simple example here so that we can completely follow the structure of it. I have a letter called A. Okay, let's take a simple example, A. Then we have a B. So when you're taking A as a 50, then if you're taking B as 100, okay, let's assume there are two variables called A and B. A is holding a number called 50 and B is holding a number called 100. So just keep in this mind 50 and 100, so that when I'm trying to understand this arithmetic operators or comparison or logical operators, it will be easy for us because we have the numbers in the mind now. The very first one, arithmetic operator, what I'm teaching you right now, it's not a new one because we've been learning this from childhood. Whoever is good at mathematics or not good at mathematics, we've been learning it. That is the very first operator is called as a plus. Plus, what basically this operator does is it will try to add up both two numbers. So the best example would be if I'm using this A plus B, what does it mean is, what does it mean is my output would be ideally should be equals to what? 150. So that means whenever you want to use a sum of some two numbers, okay, you'll never try to compare something like uh, employee ID to one more employee ID. We'll never try to add up, right? So what you add up, you need to be very clear. You need to add up something, the total sales of the previous month and this month you want to sum. So in that case, you can use this plus operator. Plus adds up two numbers. So why this answer is 150? Because my variables at the top, you can see A stands for 50 and B stands for 100. That's how I got the number 150. So plus is basically an arithmetic operator which we've been learning from childhood. It is just add up two numbers. Okay, that's a arithmetic operator. Then we have something called minus symbol. Let me put. Okay, we have a minus symbol. So minus, let's use a proper word here, subtract. Okay, it will basically use to subtract the right-handed operation from the left hand. So nothing but the way we are doing the plus operator from the left hand, from the right hand to the left hand, it is trying to add up two numbers and giving the result. In the same way, if you are using A minus B, so obviously you are going to end up some number, or simply if you are saying B minus A, or whatever the case might be, you are adding you're subtracting more than two or more than three or what are multiple numbers when you're using this. So here I should end up getting the result because I know what are my variables, that is 100 minus 50, so I should be getting a 50 as a result. So that means the subtract operator always try to subtract the two numbers from a given two variables. Not only two, it can be more than. Here I'm just taking a two example here, that is A and B. The next one we have something called the next one we have something called multiplication. Okay, which we already familiar how to use it. It looks like a star. Okay, it has a two different variants flavors, I can say. The star I can use to refer to all. Star means all. Again, the same star can be used to multiply two numbers. So that means if I try to multiply A into 10, B, that is what I want to multiply here. So it could be one number, it could be two numbers, it could be not one number, it should be always two, because right hand operation from the left hand, it will try to multiply two and give the result for you. So here the result would be from A into B, that is 50 into 100. So that is what the multiplication does. So we have something called the next one, division operator. Okay, division operator, what it does, it is basically used to divide the left hand operand by the right hand operand. So that nothing but like how we are going to use A divided B. Okay, A divided by B, that's how we are going to use, or B divided by A. So these are the fourth category of arithmetic operator. First one is equals to, second one is subtract, nothing but minus, the third one is multiplication. Currently try to remember star as a multiplication only, because when you try to get into the practical mode, you'll see the star has its own different flavor. Again, we'll try to dig into more how the star is going to help you in terms of multiplication. At the same time, how this can be also used in a multiple ways. So it's not just a multiplication, it has a different flavor. We'll try to understand this flavor when we are practically making our hands dirty on practical environment, and we'll see in action. All right, so the next one is percentage. Next one is percentage, where I can see on my dash on my keyboard is a fifth number, right? Yeah, percentage. So it is basically used to divide, okay, the left hand operand by the right hand operator. So percentage, we are trying to get the percentage of A, percentage B. So these are the very simple operators which we've been learning from the childhood, as I said. So being I'm learning SQL now, I need to understand how this effectively I can use in the combination of my SQL queries. So that's what we are going to learn in terms of arithmetic operations. So arithmetic operations, more or less, we can say it's a mathematical operations, right? It's a mathematical operations which you are going to perform on your queries. So the next one, let's come to the comparison operator. Let's come to sorry. Sorry, guys. So the next one, we have something called a comparison operator. So compare. So why the situation comes compare in real live environment and where we can use effectively, we'll see in practically again. The very first one comes as equal to symbol, right? So equals to is like you want to compare something if is equal to b or not. In my case, I want to check if is equal to b or not. A stands for 50 for me and b stands for 100. Now I'm trying to check with the equal to operator whether both are same or not. So in my case, it is true or false. So it will be give me it's going to give me a result either in the form of true or false. If it is really equal to, then I'll be getting true. If it is false, going to get a false here. So in my case, the result should be false because A can never be equal to B because A stands for 50 and B stands for 100. So that's how we end up the conclusion saying that like it is a false operator. So next we have something called this operator you might have not seen in any of the version, but in SQL we have this. This is exclamation symbol with equal to operator, which stands for not equal to. Okay, this fancy operator is called as a not equal to. That means you are trying to check is it not equal to. So if I try to compare the same variables, that is a equal to b, which was false in the previous case, in this case it will be true because you are trying to check not equal to. Yes, of course, it is not equal to 50 is not equal to 100, so it is a true. That's a fact. So whenever you want to use a not equal to operator, this is how you are going to use in the combination of exclamation symbol then equal to operator. So in it's a single keyword which you are going to use whenever you want to term something like not equal to. You want to compare. I want to extract all the records from my database. But again, where country is not equal to Australia, US, UK, Brazil, okay, Poland. Okay, so you primarily we are going to use whenever you say like I want to fetch all the records from my database, but something not equal to this finance, not equal to this number, or not equal to this particular category. So whenever you want to avoid certain situations and want to filter the required information from a business, we can use a not equal to not equal to symbol there. All right. Then we have something called uh, give me a minute, guys. All right. Sorry. So let me use the next operator that less than. So this operator, that is a left parenthesis, we can say left less than. Less than is when you want to compare, like I want to fetch all the records uh, where the year is less than 2020, okay, or less than 1950, or less than 2020. You are putting certain conditions. You want to get all the records less than that particular condition. So we'll see again, see practically, but just this is for understanding, just giving a heads up before you actually get into the real world. So the next operator, we have something called greater than symbol. Okay, I want to check whether it is a greater than this number to this or not. So in real time, we can use, I want to fetch all the records which are greater than 2000. So that means I'm talking about from 2002 till today, I want to fetch all the records, not the previous years or previous months. So that's how we can start using this greater than symbol. It more or less goes with the numeric operators. The next one, we have something called greater than or equals to. So that means you are comparing, it should be greater, at the same time it should be equal to that one. So you guys know very well what is greater than symbol stands for. If I say greater than 100, it will it's all about like greater than 100. It may not include. If you say if you say greater than or equal to 100, that means 100 is also included in case of your uh, greater than equals to. So here let me put this way, greater than equals. Okay, that is greater than equal to. So this again comes under the comparison. You are trying to do some comparisons here. So it comes under a comparison operator. So just opposite to this, again, we have something called less than or equal to. That is less than equals to, less than equal to. At the same time, we have seen what is not equal to, I mean, not symbol. Not symbol is primarily used with exclamation symbol. So it goes with not equal to less than symbol, and at the same time we have less than also. This is greater than, this is the less than. So whenever you see this exclamation symbol, which we very rarely use in Excel, but when it comes to SQL, we use it whenever there is a requirement. This exclamation symbol is termed as a not equal to here. Okay, so that's about the comparison operator, and we have seen the arithmetic operator. Let me quickly recap what is arithmetic operators. Arithmetic operators are basically, it's a mathematical operations which you want to perform on your data set, whatever data is being stored on your databases. And basically, when you look at the comparison operator, it is more or less you are trying to compare with apple to apple comparison or apple to something else. These operators comes handy, and you'll see the real importance of this when you start writing the queries. You'll often end up using all these uh, operators. The next the next one is logical operators. So the list of logical operators, let's see if I'm if I'm sorry guys. So the logical operator is the very first one. Again, important one I can see because most of the time I use in the live environment all. So when you use the, it means you are trying to compare a value to all the values in another value set. That is all. All is basically used to compare all the values in another value set. So that is all. And next we are going to use and is a very typical one. So and means like both the conditions should match. That means and means uh, A should also match and B should also match. That means I'm trying to find a person with a name called Monty from finance department. That's what I'm trying to say is, even if I find a person with Monty name, I'm fine. No, I want both the conditions should be satisfied. That means Monty and finance department. That means both the conditions, if the math record is matching, then only I want to fetch it. So in that case, I need to use and operator. And plays very important role. And means both the conditions. Whereas you have the next one or. When you talk about and, next immediately comes to your mind is or. Or is when I'm trying to fetch a record whose name is Monty and he is working in a department called finance. So when I use or operator, all the Montes, irrespective whether they are working in the finance or not, I will get. So that's how the OR works. Either of the condition is true, becomes true, you are going to fetch the record. So you need to be very, very, very careful in terms of using when to use a OR and when to use a AND condition. Again, no matter, we'll see completely in action how to use these commands, operators. The next one is any operator. Any operator you might have not seen in Excel or any environment. It comes only with a SQL again. Any is basically it's compare the values in the list of according to the condition. Okay, according to the condition, it will try to fetch the records for you by using any command. That's any, again, it's a logical operator. Then we have is not, uh, which is not existing. For example, not always works in single go. It always works in not in. Okay. We have directly, we can use not, at the same time not in. For example, I want to fetch all the records uh, whose records are not in finance, comma HR. Maybe I will have a multiple condition. So you can put all those condition within a brackets. We'll see again while you're writing the query, but not in we can use, or else you can simply use directly not, or we can also use separately in. Okay, I want to fetch all records in these departments. Specific, I'm very specific because I don't want to fetch all the records which are coming from my database. I want to be very particular. My boss asked me, can you just fetch all the records which are from finance department? So I'll be getting only finance records, not all the departments. The next one, we have seen or, right? So we have all, then we then we have and, then we have or, any, not in, then we have in. So this is basically a logical operators. Something I forgot. Okay, like is operator, like it is comparing. If the name is like this, okay, for example, sometimes I don't know the complete customer name, so I want to find out a customer name which starts with M. Maybe I don't know the first letter, maybe I know the end letter, so I can still search with a wildcard, okay, which we know already in the Excel. Wildcard search, nothing but finding out a particular information with a partial information. When you have some partial information, for example, I don't have the complete account number, I don't have the complete customer name, I don't have the complete address, so you are trying to check partially with a wildcard by using a like operator. So when you use like operator, we can fetch records which are like that records. So partial checkup is quite easy by using SQL, by using a like operator here. So that's about the logical that's about the logical operator which comes handy. And as I keep saying, like without operators, we are not going to write a queries. So without the operators, that is arithmetic operators and comparison operators and logical operators, we cannot start the queries. Of course, uh, without fail, we need to use the commands. Then in combination, we need to use the operators.